Hello and welcome back to MacStories Unwind. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Vitici. Hey, Federico.
Oh, hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing all right. It's Unwind Day, so we're going to sit here. We're going to unwind a little bit, and I hear you have an unplugged topic for us today.
Yeah,
You've been doing experiments.
yeah. So I've been on a bit of a vision quest slash deep work research phase, so to speak.
Okay.
So essentially, it's been over a month since WWDC, and this will probably be the kind of topic that we will cover more in depth on App Stories, because it's more related to our kind of a review workflows and that sort of stuff. But I gave Apple apps a fair shot over the past month. I really tried. I really did. I gave Apple Intelligence a good try, especially with the use model action. But I pretty much went back to my pre-WWDC workflow already because I could
Yeah.
already tell that I was being slowed down by the limitations of Apple apps. Even though I like them, doesn't help, of course, that the liquid glass redesign has me skeptical in a bunch of different places. But essentially, I went back to using Notion, which I was using for my notes
Really?
before. Yeah. Before WWDC, I had been using Notion for like a couple of months. I got a pretty good system that, especially when it comes to like daily notes and
Okay.
archiving things and all that sort of stuff. And went back to Todoist and Spotify. In fact, I'm gonna be writing about Spotify and a thing I discovered in Spotify for MacStories Weekly. I've been doing some experiments and in sort of setting up again my workflow both on the Mac and on the iPad Pro, which this is going to be like a segment of many parentheses, one nested inside of each other. Another
Okay.
parenthesis here. Over the past week, I tried both the 11-inch iPad Pro again and the 13-inch iPad Pro, both running iPadOS 26. I wanted to really be sure with my decision. Tried the small one again, went back to the bigger one. There's something about iPadOS 26 that just makes me feel better with the 13-inch iPad Pro instead of the 11.
That's very interesting to me. I think I can kind of see it. I mean, I think with the 11-inch, which is the model that I have currently, I don't really have more than two windows visible at a time ever. I mean, I sometimes have a third or a fourth open, but they're usually smaller, and I alt tab between, or I command tab between them. I don't have them all visible at once.
Yeah, there's something about that makes me feel better. Anyway, I was playing around again with Claude, and just yesterday, Anthropic, the company behind Claude, they had a bit of a launch, a bit of a feature launch. They introduced this gallery they basically rebranded MCP as connectors and extensions.
Okay.
And they have now a much easier setup flow for essentially using, they're still MCP servers. They're just removing a lot of the complexity from MCP. So
yeah, there is, you can tell when you use MCPs, there's a friction to them because you're either, some developers do a better job than others at kind of integrating them, but you may have to copy some code into a JSON file, that kind of thing, which, not everybody does that every day. That'll make some people uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. And you can tell obviously that the MCP, which stands for Model Context Protocol, is basically an extensibility framework for third-party apps and AI and LLMs. It has grown a lot over the past. It was introduced in December, so over the past 8 months, it's really grown a lot, and it's sort of has been standardized a lot. And Anthropic has now done this pretty big relaunch on Claude for the web and on Claude for Mac, so the desktop version, where
Right.
it's now basically split into two flavors of extensions. You got your remote connectors, so things like Notion or Zapier, for example. Those are web-based MCP servers. They're called remote connectors. They're going to work on the Claude web app because they're just going to talk to another web service like Notion or like Zapier, for example.
Right.
Then you have your desktop extensions. Those are based on a new format. Actually like on a new file format. I believe it's DXT. And it's basically, this is something interesting that Anthropic has done. So it used to be with MCP servers up until yesterday, that you had to copy and paste some JSON text
Right.
and drop it into a config.json file somewhere on your Mac. You
Yeah.
don't have to do that anymore with this new flavor of extensions. There's only a few of those, like new file format extensions, essentially the ones that Anthropic has made. Now they're telling
Yeah.
developers you should also convert your MCP servers to this new file format, and you should submit them for review because there's going to be a gallery for extensions. So they're basically creating
Oh.
their own app store, which is really fascinating. I immediately texted Finn, John, as you can imagine, to sort
Of
of try
course.
and understand, hey, can we convert some of our MCP experiments into a desktop extension and submit it to Anthropic? So we'll see.
Are they going to let people sell them? Do you know, or is it going to be just like a free thing?
No
or...
idea. There's like a Google form if you want to submit your
A
extension.
Google form. I think it's fun. So many companies use Google Forms
Yeah.
still for even pretty big companies. Just to give people an idea of a couple of examples of places where you might have to do this copying into a config file. Hypercontext is one of them, which is Anders Borum's app.
Yep.
It's not hard to do, but and Anders' app is quite good. Another one is actually it's a little easier because it gets kind of done for you with the click of a button. But Long Play is it has its own built-in MCP server that lets you use Claude to create collections and smart collections and control your queue in the music app Long Play.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just wrote about it on MacStories. So
I did. I'll put the link in the show notes.
yeah. So yeah, you don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to mess with curly brackets and double quotes and commas and all those fun JSON things.
And
Now-
get one of those wrong and you screw up your entire config
your
file.
entire config file for Claude. Now, what's interesting here is that to make this possible, Anthropic has done a couple of things. They're bundling a Node.js server inside the Claude desktop app for Mac.
Oh,
Right?
I see.
Because all those
That makes
MCP
sense.
servers, they had to run a Node server. And previously it used to be that if you wanted to use MCP, you had to install Node on your macOS terminal yourself. So what Anthropic is doing here, they're saying, well, we're bundling a Node server inside Cloud for Mac. And basically what all these extensions are doing, they're basically little wrappers around Node. And they have made extensions that actually use AppleScript to integrate with iMessage and Apple Notes. Those are made by Anthropic. And if you inspect...
I already downloaded those just the other day.
Yeah. If you inspect the files of those extensions that get downloaded from the built-in gallery, they get saved into application support, Claude, desktop extensions. I think it's the folder path. If you go there, you will see it's basically a JavaScript file, some icon resources, and inside the JavaScript, they're basically calling the Node server and executing some AppleScript. So what I think is interesting, it's all based on AppleScript.
It's interesting. But what are they going to do when it comes to mobile? I mean, none of this is going to work on mobile.
Nope. So what I think Anthropic is going to do, I think eventually they will enable remote web-based connectors on mobile. Right now, there's no third-party connectors in Cloud for iOS or iPadOS. You can only use the built-in integrations, Google Drive and Gmail and Google Calendar. But Zapier, for example, cannot be used in Cloud for iOS. However, if you use Safari on your iPhone and you go to Claude.ai and you use the Claude web app on your phone, you can still use the web integrations, right? So I think
it makes sense.
The next step would be to enable web connectors in Claude for iOS.
Yeah.
I don't think, given the limitations of iOS, I don't think they have a strategy for having MCP running locally on your device. There's just no API for third-party developers to call the extension of another third-party app. You cannot even use app intents like that because they're not open to third-party. Like the third-party developer of Ivory cannot call the app intent of Goodlinks, for example. Like it's just not possible. So they don't have a strategy for mobile except for remote connectors, I guess. But it works on desktop. And I think it's quite funny that we come all this way and we're circling all the way back to AppleScript with these
We
little
are. I know, it's
JavaScript
wild.
wrappers that are calling AppleScript behind the scenes to
Well,
execute
that's
something.
what Longplay did too. They added
Yeah,
AppleScript to the app as well, and it was. It sounds like from the developers' blog post, it was quite a journey because if you go looking for documentation as a developer for AppleScript, it's all Objective C documentation. It's not Swift UI stuff. He got some help from some other developers, but it was an interesting story about what it's like to add AppleScript to a Mac app in 2025.
yeah, yeah. So I've been playing around with those Claude extensions, and I'll talk about it some more when we revisit our workflows at some point in the summer. The
Okay.
other quick thing before I leave you to your pick, because I don't really have, well, sort of kind of have a pick. I'll talk about it in a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Um, Very quick mention. I got an invite to try the Comet browser by Perplexity. Generally speaking,
Oh,
I kind of dislike Perplexity, especially what they did last year with scraping.
kinda. I really dislike this
Yeah,
Perplexity for the
yeah.
record.
I do this. I don't really vibe with the guy, with the CEO. Uh,
Yeah.
they have they have a good product. They know how to design a nice
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
product. They know
I
how
don't
to.
disagree.
They're fast. They make a good product. The CEO has done some questionable things and shared some questionable comments, but regardless, let's just taking a look at the product at face value.
Yep.
This Comet browser, so this agentic AI based browser, is pretty good. Like what they have
Mm,
done, what they have done. Like I now understand why all these companies are getting into this space. I still haven't tried the Dia browser. Supposedly, OpenAI is gonna come up with the ChatGPT browser at some point, and that's gonna be
yeah, soon.
uh, soon.
Soon.
That's gonna be a problem for all of these companies, I think. Because it's OpenAI and ChatGPT, and they have market share and brand recognition. But
Yep.
regardless, Comet pretty good. Like you can basically let the browser do things for you with tabs in the background. As
Sure.
long as you're signed into Todoist.com or your Google
Yeah.
Calendar or your Gmail, you can just say, hey, take these tabs and go do these things. Or like search my email, find that hotel reservation, then open Google Maps, make a plan. Yeah, like you can basically, and while you continue working, and it's not like I was under the impression that Comet was gonna like spin up a separate set of tabs, right?
Hmm.
Alongside your regular tabs. No, it's basically running a virtualized browser alongside your regular tabs. So
I see.
if you keep the assistant sidebar open while you're working in, I don't know, Todoist or Gmail, you can see that the assistant on the side, it's like opening web pages in the background, clicking things. For example, as a quick test before doing the show, I took the three interviews that Nintendo published with the Donkey Kong Bonanza developers. They have three articles, and I asked, "Can you take these three tabs and save them in my Readwise reader, put them in the shortlist, and give them all the games tag?" Now, usually I would just do it myself, but I just wanted to run a demo, and it worked. Like
Right.
it took it about a minute, but it took all those tabs, and I could see that it was clicking around Readwise Reader. There's like a little thumbnail preview. It's essentially what OpenAI is doing with Operator, but in the form of a browser on your
So
computer.
it's UI. It's doing UI
I
scripting.
think so. I think all of these companies are doing visual scripting. I don't know what model they're using. I don't know. It's got to be a combination of like accessing the DOM of a web page and
Yeah.
having a small vision model running inside the
Sure.
browser, plus whatever cloud model Perplexity has, right? So yeah,
Right.
it's
Right.
fascinating. Invite only for now. Eventually, it'll ship to everybody. But it's an interesting space to keep an eye on, I think, especially because all of these companies are getting into it, including the big one, OpenAI, supposedly soon.
Yeah. One security thing that I wonder about with these agentic browsers that are coming is whether it's going to incentivize people to stay logged into basically everything all the time,
Yeah, that's a good
which
point. Yeah,
which is not a great thing. I mean, it's good to be logged out, especially if it's something that has your credit card or something. They're like, for instance, just an obvious example, Amazon. Do you want to always be logged into Amazon just so you could have Comet buy something for you? I'm
yeah,
not sure I would have a
probably
browser
not.
agent buy something for me anyway. But at this
Probably
point, but
not. Probably not.
yeah,
Probably
I
not.
don't know.
So,
Anyway, it's
yeah.
just a thought that occurred to me. Let's get to our picks, Federico. I've got a movie this week. It's
Okay.
from the studio A24, and it's called Friendship, and it's a dark comedy that was directed by Andrew DeYoung. It's I guess it won. It premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival in 2024. It came out either late last year or early this year. Actually, it looks like it. Looking at my notes, it looks like it came out just last month in May. But you can get it streaming now, either to buy or to rent. It's an expensive rental because it just came out, so it's like 20 or 20. I think like $20 or $25. So if at this point you might be better off just buying it if you want to buy it, or wait until the rental price goes down. But the plot follows a character by the name of Craig Waterman, who's played by Tim Robinson, who's a comic who has a show on Netflix. And he plays a very seemingly mild mannered, suburban dad who lives just kind of a very ordinary life. He actually works at a company that optimizes apps for engagement. So he basically is like the person who creates apps with coins and gems and tries to make them addictive so that you don't put them down. And that's his day job. And one day, a package gets misdelivered to his doorstep, and his wife asks him to take it over to the neighbor because it was somebody from down the street. And he does that. Later on, she meets the guy at the house and says, "You know what? He invited you to come over for a couple of drinks. You ought to do it." And he's like, I don't know. I've got, I might have plans. And she said, she's like, you never have plans. Basically, she's like, you need a friend. Go get a friend. So he goes over and he meets this guy and hangs out with him a little bit. And it turns out he's a weatherman at the local TV station. And so Craig Waterman is immediately kind of captured by this guy, just like in awe of him. He's like, oh, he's got this cool job, and he seems kind of like a different kind of person, very avant-garde, not like your typical suburban dad, and he really wants to be his friend. So they start hanging out a little bit, and they do all kinds of things that are very different from Waterman's normal life. And over time, though, it spins out of control because Craig Waterman just tries too hard to be this guy's best friend. And he's hanging out with his other friends, and he makes a lot of like really bad social missteps along the way, alienates himself from this entire group of guys, including his neighbor Austin, who's played by Paul Rudd. And it just escalates from there into a very kind of dark story, but very funny, about kind of middle-aged men looking for friendship later in life when they, with a new group of people. And it's very funny. I won't spoil how it ends because it gets more and more dramatic as it goes on, as Craig Waterman tries to latch on to this weatherman from the local news. But very fun movie. Right now, as I said, it's a little expensive to rent, but I think over time, you should be able to get it for the typical $5 or $6 down the road a little bit.
All right.
So highly recommended.
Nice. Okay. I just wanted to mention that we finished season 4 of The Bear,
Ah, yes.
and I didn't really like it in the end.
Really? I was listening to the besties talk about this the other day, and they seemed to like it. I forget who was talking about it on that show.
It's my least. I think it's the worst season for
Oh,
my
wow.
taste.
Yeah.
I learned last night that season 3 and 4 were shot together, which explains the similarities between them and the radical differences between season 1 and 2 of The Bear. I don't want to get into the details, but I just feel like it was extremely slow. A lot of scenes where it was just slow montages and exposition with nothing happening.
Mm.
The dialogues were in many cases too long, with just people staying in silence and saying yeah or staring at each other. Like, I'm not really into that kind of stuff. Like, there's a way of doing character building. Like, it reminded me in many instances. It reminded me of like one of those artsy movies where, oh, but it's cool that they're not talking. Like, I don't get it. I
Right.
don't get, and maybe I'm too ignorant to appreciate art like that. But like, if I'm sitting down in front of the television, like, say something instead of, like, I don't know, staring and being quiet for 3 minutes.
Well,
I so
and
I
on a
don't get it.
practical on a practical level, if you're lying in bed watching that, you're just gonna fall
Oh
asleep.
yeah, oh yeah. Took us 2 weeks. Took us 2 weeks to finish 10 episodes because we kept dozing off.
Yeah, I'm
Because
not surprised.
like
I'm not
nothing
surprised.
was happening essentially. Like if you ask me
Yeah,
what happened in season 4 of The Bear, nothing happened except what happened at the end. And that's
right.
I don't think it's a good takeaway. But we'll see. It's been renewed for season 5. So, and
Mhm.
this will be shot independently. So hopefully, I think they're already shooting it actually right now. So
Okay.
hopefully they'll be able to take in some of the feedback from season 4. Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, that's. I'm sorry to hear that, but
No, it's fine.
yeah,
It's fine.
I'm glad you went through the pain, so maybe I don't have to. But
Yeah, at this
I
point I
want
gotta know how the story ends. That's my problem. So
Federico. I want to close out with one of our unwind deals, which this week is Zombieland, which is a very funny horror movie from 2009 that stars Jesse Eisenberg and Woody Harrelson, Emma Stone, and a bunch of others. It's just a very funny story where Jesse Eisenberg has survived the zombie apocalypse as a college student by living through to a very special set of rules. He has these zombie rules, and they have kept him alive for a very long time. And he teams up with Woody Harrelson's character, too, who goes by Tallahassee, to try to survive. And they run across Emma Stone and her sister, who are kind of con artists. Really fun movie. I haven't watched it in a while, but right now you can get it on iTunes for $5, $4.99, which is, I think, its all-time lowest price. So I would recommend it. It's a fun movie. Maybe buy it now and save it for Halloween season or something like that if you don't want to watch a scary movie over the summer. But it's a great movie. I've seen it a couple times and highly recommend it. So
nice.
that's it for this week, Federico.
Okay.
All right. You can find us over at MacStories.net, of course, and we are on social media. So just go look for Federico. He's at Viticci. It's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHWS. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.